Jake Morrison stood at the control room window and watched the stars change color. The orange glow meant enemy ships were coming fast through space toward New Haven Colony. He had been the colony boss for 6 years and had never seen anything like this before. The warning alarms made loud noises throughout the buildings. People ran in the streets below while carrying bags and children. The evacuation ships could only take half the people who lived here. Jake knew that many would have to stay and fight or hide. Dr. Lisa Carter ran into the control room with her data pad in her hands. Her face was white with fear, and her voice shook when she spoke. "The sensors show 300 enemy ships coming toward us. They will be here in 2 days. The Vraxx have found our colony." Jake felt his stomach drop when he heard the name Vraxx. Everyone in human space knew stories about them. They killed every person on every world they visited. No one had ever survived a Vraxx attack. The alien ships were made of living tissue that could heal itself and shoot acid that melted through metal. Captain Ben Hughes came running up the stairs to the control room. His 12 patrol ships were the only military protection the colony had. Ben was a good soldier, but his ships were small and old. The Vraxx warships were huge and had weapons that could destroy planets. "We need to send a message to Earth Command right now," Ben said while typing on his communication device. "The nearest human military base is 3 weeks away by fast ship. We cannot wait for help that will come too late." Lisa looked at her scanner readings again and shook her head. "The Vraxx ships are not normal metal ships. They are alive and they grow their own weapons. Our guns might not even hurt them." She pointed to the screen that showed pictures of the enemy fleet. Jake watched the images of Vraxx ships that looked like giant sea creatures floating in space. Their skin moved and changed colors while long tentacles reached out from their sides. These were not machines built in factories. They were living monsters that breathed and thought and felt pain. The first Vraxx scout ships appeared at the edge of the star system 6 hours later. They moved in patterns like hunting animals while they scanned the colony world. The human defense satellites tried to hide, but the alien sensors found them easily. Ben took his patrol ships out to meet the scouts. Jake watched the battle on his screens while Lisa recorded everything for the science reports. The human ships fired their best weapons at the Vraxx scouts. The laser beams hit the alien ships, but the living skin just absorbed the energy. Thus, Vraxx ships shot back with streams of green acid that ate through the human ship armor like water through paper. 2 patrol ships died in the first minute of fighting. Ben ordered his remaining ships to retreat back to the colony before they all got destroyed. "We cannot fight them with our weapons," Ben said when he returned to the control room. His face was covered with sweat and his hands shook from fear. "The acid weapons go through our shields like they are not even there. We need a miracle to survive this attack." Jake activated the colony emergency broadcast system and spoke to all 50,000 people who lived on New Haven. His voice reached every building and every shelter where families were hiding. "The enemy will be here soon. We will fight them as long as we can. Do not give up hope." Lisa found something strange on her long-range sensors while the evacuation ships loaded people as fast as possible. There was a signal coming from deep space, beyond the Vraxx fleet. Something big was moving toward them through the darkness between stars. The signal was human, but different from any ship she had seen before. The Vraxx main fleet arrived the next day and surrounded the colony world like a cloud of death. Their bioships moved in perfect coordination while they prepared for the final attack. Jake could see them through telescopes as they fed on asteroids to grow bigger and stronger. Ben gathered his remaining 10 ships for one last battle to protect the evacuation. He knew they would all die, but maybe they could buy time for more people to escape. The patrol ships took positions around the largest evacuation ship while families said goodbye to fathers and brothers who would stay to fight. The Vraxx began their attack by sending smaller creatures that looked like flying jellyfish. These biofighters came down through the atmosphere while shooting acid and poison at anything that moved. The colony defense guns tried to stop them, but there were too many. Jake stood in his control room and watched his world begin to burn. The strange signal from deep space was getting stronger, but still too far away to help. He picked up his communication device and sent one final message to Earth. New Haven colony is under attack by Vraxx forces. We need immediate help. If anyone receives this message, remember that we fought until the end. The evacuation ships launched into space, while the biofighters destroyed buildings and melted roads. Half the colony population was still on the ground when the Vraxx main fleet began moving toward the planet. Jake could see the massive bioships getting larger in the sky. As they came closer to end everything, Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of the biggest warship humanity had ever built. The UES Titan's Wrath was 2 kilometers long and filled with weapons that most people thought were impossible to make. She had been traveling through space for 2 weeks after receiving the emergency call from New Haven Colony. The Dreadnought dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the star system. Kate could see the Vraxx fleet surrounding the human colony world like hungry wolves around sheep. 300 alien bioships moved in perfect patterns while they prepared to destroy every human on the planet. Chief Engineer Rick Barnes worked in the engine room with machines that could power entire cities. The fusion reactors hummed with energy while quantum computers calculated firing solutions for weapons that bent space and time. Rick had helped build this ship in secret for 15 years while humanity prepared for war. Lieutenant Commander Amy Foster sat at the tactical station and watched enemy ship movements on her screens. The artificial intelligence called Atlas helped her track every Vraxx vessel while it learned their battle patterns. Amy had trained for this moment her whole life, but had never seen so many enemy ships in one place. The Vraxx detected the human Dreadnought, but did not seem worried about one ship against their massive fleet. Their bioships communicated with each other through living neural networks that connected their minds. The alien fleet commander thought humans were weak creatures with primitive technology. Kate studied the tactical display that showed every enemy position around New Haven. Her crew of 800 people represented the best soldiers and scientists from all human worlds. They had volunteered for this mission, knowing they might never return home to their families. The Dreadnought was invisible to most sensors because of special coating that absorbed energy instead of reflecting it. Kate could move close to the enemy fleet before they realized how dangerous her ship really was. The Vraxx would learn that humans could build weapons beyond their imagination. Dr. Helen Park worked in the science laboratory studying captured Vraxx technology from previous battles. She had discovered that the alien ships shared information through quantum signals that moved faster than light. Every bioship could see what all the others saw and think what they all thought. The Vraxx sent a small squadron of 20 ships to investigate the approaching human vessel. These bioships moved like living creatures swimming through space while their weapon tentacles reached toward the Dreadnought. The alien pilots expected to destroy this single human ship quickly and return to the main attack. Kate waited until the enemy squadron was close enough before she gave the order to fire. The quantum disruption cannons charged with power that came from controlled black holes. When the weapons fired, they tore holes in space itself that swallowed the Vraxx ships completely. The alien squadron disappeared in flashes of twisted light and screaming metal. The bioships tried to heal their wounds, but the quantum weapons attacked the very atoms that held them together. In 30 seconds, 20 Vraxx ships became clouds of dust floating in space. Commander Steve Walsh launched his fighter squadron from the Dreadnought's hangar bays. His 40 pilots flew ships equipped with artificial intelligence that could predict enemy movements before they happened. The human fighters moved through space like deadly birds hunting slower prey. The Vraxx bioships tried to fight back with acid streams and poison clouds, but the human fighters were too fast and smart. The AI systems in each fighter learned how the aliens moved and shot their weapons exactly where the enemy ships would be in the next few seconds. Amy watched the battle, data flowing across her screens while Atlas calculated the best way to attack the main Vraxx fleet. The artificial intelligence had learned more about alien tactics in 10 minutes of fighting than humans had discovered in years of study. Rick monitored the weapon systems while they recharged for the next attack. The quantum cannons needed enormous amounts of energy, but the fusion reactors could provide power faster than any previous human technology. The Dreadnought could fight continuously for days without running out of ammunition. The surviving Vraxx ships from the squadron sent their death screams through the neural network to the main fleet around New Haven. For the first time in their long history of conquest, the Vraxx experienced something they had never felt before. Fear began to spread through their collective consciousness like poison. Kate opened communication channels to broadcast on all frequencies throughout the star system. Her message reached every Vraxx ship and every human colony settlement. This is Admiral Kate Sullivan of the United Earthship Titan's Wrath. You have attacked human civilians, and for that crime, you will all die. The Vraxx fleet commander received the human message through its bioship's living communication system. The alien had conquered 17 different species and destroyed hundreds of worlds. It had never heard such confidence from prey animals before they were consumed. Helen discovered something important while analyzing the wreckage from the destroyed Vraxx squadron. The bioships were not just connected through neural networks. They were actually parts of one giant living organism that stretched across space. Destroying ships was like cutting fingers off a massive hand. The main Vraxx fleet began moving away, from New Haven toward the approaching human Dreadnought. 300 bioships formed attack patterns while their living weapons grew larger and deadlier. The aliens intended to swarm the single human vessel and tear it apart with overwhelming numbers. Kate smiled when she saw the enemy fleet coming toward her ship instead of continuing their attack on the colony. Every minute the Vraxx spent fighting her was time for more human civilians to escape in evacuation ships. She had already accomplished part of her mission by saving lives. The UES Titan's Wrath accelerated toward the approaching enemy fleet while all weapon systems charged to full power. Kate knew that the next few hours would decide whether humanity survived as a free species or became food for alien monsters. The Dreadnought raced through space toward the largest battle in human history. The first real battle began when 50 Vraxx ships separated from the main fleet to attack the human Dreadnought. These bioships were larger than the Scouts and had grown extra weapon organs during their flight through space. Their living hulls pulsed with acid that could melt through any known metal. Steve Walsh led his fighter squadron out to meet the approaching enemy ships. His pilots flew in perfect formation while their artificial intelligence systems shared, targeting data between all 40 fighters. The human ships moved like a school of fish that could think and plan together. The Vraxx bioships tried to surround the human fighters with clouds of poisonous gas that would kill any living thing that breathed it. But the human pilots wore sealed suits, and their ships had filters that cleaned the air completely. The alien poison had no effect on machines built for war in space. Amy Foster watched the fighter battle on her tactical screens while Atlas calculated the best time to fire the Dreadnought's main weapons. The artificial intelligence could predict where every enemy ship would be in the next few minutes based on their movement patterns and biological limitations. The human fighters struck first with quantum missiles that moved faster than light itself. The Vraxx bioships tried to dodge, but their living nervous systems could not react quickly enough. 12 alien vessels exploded in bursts of green flame while their death screams echoed through space. Dr. Helen Park studied the battle data from her laboratory while the fighting continued around them. She noticed that when Vraxx ships died, the other bioships in their group seemed to feel pain and confusion. The neural network that connected them was sharing the experience of death across all their minds. The remaining Vraxx ships attacked, the human fighters with tentacles that shot streams of acid through space. The alien weapons were alive and could change direction to follow their targets, but the human fighters were faster and their AI systems could calculate safe flight paths through the acid streams. Rick Barnes monitored the Dreadnought's weapon systems while they prepared for the main attack. The quantum disruption cannons were charging with energy that came from controlled singularities deep inside the ship. When these weapons fired, they would tear holes in reality itself. Kate Sullivan gave the order to fire when the Vraxx ships moved into the perfect position. The quantum cannons released beams of pure destruction that traveled through space like invisible lightning. Where the beams touched the alien bioships, matter simply stopped existing. 20 Vraxx vessels vanished in silent explosions that left only empty space behind. The quantum weapons had destroyed them so completely that not even atoms remained. The surviving alien ships stopped their attack and floated in space like confused animals. The Vraxx fleet commander felt the death of its ships through the neural network that connected all bio-vessels. Each destroyed ship sent waves of pain and terror through the collective consciousness. The alien had never experienced anything like the complete annihilation that human weapons could cause. Steve's fighters regrouped and attacked the remaining Vraxx ships while they were still paralyzed by shock. The human pilots worked together, like parts of a single machine, while their weapons found weak spots in the alien bioarmor. 8 more enemy ships died in the next 2 minutes. Amy analyzed the battle results, while Atlas learned more about Vraxx tactics and weaknesses. The artificial intelligence discovered that the bioships became slower and less coordinated when several vessels in their group were destroyed quickly. The neural network was both their strength and their weakness. The last 10 Vraxx ships from the attack group tried to retreat back to the main fleet, but the human fighters were faster and their quantum missiles could catch anything that moved through space. None of the alien vessels escaped to report what they had learned about human capabilities. Helen made an important discovery while studying the wreckage from destroyed Vraxx ships. The bio-vessels were not just alive, they were intelligent. Each ship had its own mind that was connected to all the others. Killing them was like murdering thinking creatures, not just destroying machines. The main Vraxx fleet received the final death screams from their advance force through the neural network. 300 bioships felt the terror and pain of 50, vessels being completely annihilated by weapons they could not understand or defend against. Kate opened communication channels to broadcast another message to the enemy fleet. She wanted them to know exactly what they were facing before the real battle began. You have seen what human weapons can do to your ships. Leave this system now or face complete destruction. The Vraxx fleet commander responded with its own message, sent through biocommunication systems that created sounds no human throat could make. The alien words were translated by Atlas into language that humans could understand. We do not retreat from prey animals. You will feed our hunger like all the others. Rick reported that all weapon systems were recharged and ready for continuous combat. The Dreadnought could fire its quantum cannons every 30 seconds, while the fighters could launch missiles as fast as their pilots could target enemy ships. The Vraxx had never faced this level of sustained firepower. The surviving human fighters returned to the Dreadnought's hangar bays to rearm and refuel. Steve's pilots had not lost a single ship during the battle while destroying 50 enemy vessels. The artificial intelligence systems had given them an enormous advantage over biological reaction times. Amy updated the tactical display to show the current positions of all enemy ships around New Haven Colony. The Vraxx fleet was still surrounding the planet, but they had stopped their attack to focus on the approaching human Dreadnought. The civilians below had gained precious time to evacuate. The UES Titan's Wrath continued its approach toward the main enemy fleet while all systems prepared for the largest space battle in human history. Kate knew that the next engagement would decide whether her species survived or became extinct. The Vraxx were about to learn what happened when they threatened human children. Helen sent her research data to the bridge with a warning about Vraxx behavior patterns. The bioships would become more dangerous and unpredictable as more of them died. The neural network that connected them would spread fear and pain until the surviving aliens became desperate and reckless. The Dreadnought entered the outer edge of the Vraxx fleet formation, while enemy ships began moving to surround the single human vessel. Kate smiled as she watched 300 alien bioships preparing to attack her ship. They still thought that numbers would give them victory against superior human technology. The Vraxx fleet formed their most feared battle formation as they surrounded the human Dreadnought. 100 bioships connected their neural networks together to create a single massive mind that could think and fight as one organism. This collective consciousness had destroyed entire civilizations across the galaxy. Kate watched the enemy ships linked together through streams of living energy that flowed between their hulls. The biovessels began moving in perfect coordination while their weapons grew larger and more deadly. The aliens were preparing to use their ultimate weapon against humanity. Atlas detected the neural connection forming between enemy ships and sent warnings to every system on the Dreadnought. The artificial intelligence had never seen anything like this biological network that could share thoughts and reactions across hundreds of vessels simultaneously. Dr. Helen Park studied the neural energy readings from her laboratory while the Vraxx completed their formation. She realized that the connected bioships were becoming parts of a single giant creature that stretched across space. This superorganism could coordinate attacks that no individual ship could perform alone. The connected Vraxx fleet began their assault with waves of acid that moved through space like living tsunamis. The green streams flowed around the human Dreadnought while searching for weak spots in the armor plating. But the quantum shields absorbed the acid and converted it into harmless energy. Lieutenant Commander Amy Foster tracked the coordinated enemy attack while Atlas calculated defensive patterns. The artificial intelligence could predict where each acid stream would strike, but the sheer number of weapons made defense almost impossible. The bioships were firing from every direction at once. Chief Petty Officer Ryan Cooper monitored the sensor systems from his station in the communications center. He noticed something strange about the neural energy connecting the Vraxx ships. The biological signals followed quantum patterns that human technology could detect and possibly disrupt. Rick Barnes rerouted power from the engines to strengthen the quantum shields, while enemy acid continued to strike the hull. The fusion reactors worked at maximum capacity to provide energy for both defense and weapons. The Dreadnought shook under the constant bombardment from 300 alien guns. Kate ordered the quantum cannons to fire at the largest concentration of enemy ships. The weapons tore through space and destroyed 12 biovessels in a single salvo. But the remaining ships in the neural network absorbed the shock and continued fighting without missing a beat. The death of the 12 ships sent waves of pain through the collective consciousness, but made the surviving vessels more dangerous. The neural network redirected the fear and anger into pure aggression, while the bioships grew new weapons from their living tissue. Steve Walsh launched his fighters, again to attack the edges of the enemy formation. His pilots targeted the neural connections between Vraxx ships to try breaking their coordination. The quantum missiles struck the energy streams, but the biological links healed themselves within seconds. Helen made a crucial discovery while analyzing the neural network data. The collective consciousness was not just sharing thoughts between ships. It was also sharing the accumulated knowledge and fear from every species the Vraxx had ever destroyed. The network contained the screams of billions of dead aliens. Amy realized that the neural connections created a quantum signature that Atlas could track and analyze. The artificial intelligence began developing new attack programs that could travel through the biological network like computer viruses. These digital weapons could attack minds instead of just destroying ships. The Vraxx Collective launched their deadliest attack by focusing all 300 ships on a single point of the Dreadnought's hull. The combined acid streams began eating through the quantum shields while biotentacles reached out to grab the human vessel. Ryan detected massive quantum fluctuations in the neural network as the Vraxx strained their collective consciousness to maintain the attack. The biological connections were operating at maximum capacity and starting to show signs of instability. Kate ordered emergency power to the forward shields, while the hull armor began to melt under the concentrated acid assault. The Dreadnoughts. Advanced materials could withstand incredible damage, but even quantum alloys had limits when faced with this level of coordinated firepower. Rick activated the emergency systems that flooded damaged sections with repair nanobots. The microscopic machines began rebuilding melted armor while the battle continued around them. Human technology could heal itself almost as fast as the Vraxx weapons could cause damage. Atlas completed its analysis of the neural network and discovered a critical weakness. The collective consciousness required perfect synchronization between all connected ships. If that synchronization could be disrupted, the entire formation would collapse into chaos. Helen developed a quantum virus program that could propagate through the Vraxx neural connections like a disease. The digital weapon would not just destroy ships, but would attack the minds controlling them. She uploaded the program to Atlas for immediate deployment. The artificial intelligence modified the virus to match the specific quantum frequencies used by the Vraxx neural network. The weapon was designed to cause feedback loops that would amplify fear and pain until the collective consciousness tore itself apart. Amy targeted the quantum missiles with the new virus program and fired them directly into the neural energy streams connecting the enemy ships. The digital weapons traveled through the biological network faster than the Vraxx could detect or defend against them. The virus reached the collective consciousness and began multiplying through every connected mind. The Vraxx ships suddenly stopped their coordinated attack as their pilots experienced overwhelming terror from the accumulated deaths of every species they had destroyed. The neural network began broadcasting the screams of billions of extinct aliens directly into the minds of every connected Vraxx. The collective consciousness that had been their greatest strength became a conduit for pure nightmare as the virus spread through their formation. One by one, the bioships began breaking away from the neural connections as their pilots tried to escape the mental assault. The perfect coordination that had made them so dangerous collapsed into complete disorder as fear overwhelmed their collective mind. Kate watched the enemy formation fall apart while Vraxx ships fled in random directions. The quantum virus had turned their own neural network against them by forcing them to experience the terror of every victim they had ever consumed. The remaining bioships that had not connected to the network watched in horror as their collective consciousness destroyed itself. The Vraxx had never seen their ultimate weapon turned against them by creatures they considered primitive prey animals. The quantum virus spread through the Vraxx neural network like wildfire consuming dry grass. Dr. Helen Park watched the biological connections between enemy ships begin to overload as the collective consciousness experienced the accumulated terror of every species they had destroyed throughout their long history of conquest. Vraxx bioships started attacking each other as their pilots lost control of their minds. The virus made them relive the final moments of billions of aliens who had died screaming under Vraxx weapons. The neural network that had connected their thoughts became a prison of infinite nightmare. Admiral Kate Sullivan ordered the Dreadnought to advance toward the chaos while enemy ships fled in all directions. The UES Titan's Wrath moved through the scattered Vraxx formation like a shark swimming through schools of panicked fish. The quantum cannons fired continuously at any bioship that tried to reform. Atlas analyzed the breakdown of the collective consciousness while more enemy vessels disconnected from the neural network. The artificial intelligence discovered that the virus was not just causing fear, but was actually rewriting the biological programming that controlled Vraxx behavior patterns. Chief Petty Officer Ryan Cooper detected massive quantum explosions as several bioships tore themselves apart rather than continue experiencing the virus effects. The organic hulls began eating themselves while their weapon systems fired randomly into space. The Vraxx were literally destroying themselves. Lieutenant Commander Amy Foster targeted the largest remaining groups of connected enemy ships with more quantum missiles carrying virus programs. Each weapon that hit the neural network caused the collective consciousness to fragment further into smaller pieces that could not coordinate with each other. The Vraxx fleet commander tried to maintain control over its forces, but the virus had infected its own mind through the neural connections. The alien experienced the death screams of 17 different species that had begged for mercy before being consumed. The accumulated guilt and terror drove it to the edge of insanity. Steve Walsh led his fighter squadron through the chaos while Vraxx ships continued to attack anything that moved. His pilots had to dodge bio-vessels that were firing at their own allies as much as at human targets. The enemy formation had become a war zone where nobody was safe. Rick Barnes monitored the fusion reactors while they provided power for continuous combat operations. The quantum weapon systems had been firing for over an hour, but the energy reserves remained strong. Human technology could maintain this level of warfare far longer than biological organisms could survive. Commander Tony Davis prepared boarding, parties to capture damaged Vraxx ships that were drifting helplessly through space. His Marines wore armor that protected them from alien bioweapons, while they carried equipment to study enemy technology up close. Helen discovered something terrifying while analyzing data from captured bioships. The Vraxx were not natural predators, but were actually refugees fleeing from something even worse in the galactic core. Their aggression came from desperate hunger as they consumed other species to survive their long exile. The revelation changed nothing about the immediate battle, but explained why the Vraxx fought with such vicious determination. They were not evil conquerors, but starving survivors who had become monsters through centuries of feeding on innocent civilizations. Amy detected the approach of the enemy fleet commander's personal bioship, which was much larger than any other vessel in the Vraxx force. The massive creature had grown over hundreds of years while absorbing technology and knowledge from conquered worlds. It was less machine than living nightmare. The commander's ship launched itself directly at the human Dreadnought, while its hull began changing shape and color. Organic weapons emerged from every surface as the biovessel prepared for single combat against the UES Titan's wrath. The alien leader intended to settle this battle personally. Kate accepted the challenge and ordered all fighters to clear the area while she faced the enemy commander alone. The quantum cannons charged to maximum power, while Atlas calculated targeting solutions for the approaching bioship that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. The two massive vessels collided in space, while their weapons created a light show that could be seen from the surface of New Haven Colony. Quantum beams met streams of living acid while both ships tried to tear each other apart with every weapon they possessed. Ryan reported that the enemy commander's ship was trying to drain energy directly from the Dreadnought's fusion reactors. The biovessel had extended feeding tentacles that were attempting to consume the quantum power cores like food. The Vraxx were literally trying to eat the human ship. Rick activated emergency protocols that flooded the hull with quantum radiation. That was toxic to all known forms of biological matter. The feeding tentacles began dissolving as soon as they touched the contaminated energy fields surrounding the fusion reactors. The commander's bioship screamed through space as its living hull burned from contact with quantum poison. The massive creature began pulling away from the Dreadnought, while its organic weapons continued firing streams of acid and explosive biomatter. Atlas launched the most powerful virus program directly into the enemy commander's nervous system, through a quantum missile that penetrated the bioship's hull. The digital weapon attacked the alien's consciousness with the concentrated fear and pain of every species it had personally destroyed. The Vraxx commander experienced its own death 17 times as the virus forced it to relive each genocide. From the perspective of the victims, the alien's mind shattered under the weight of accumulated guilt while its bioship began tearing itself apart. Tony's boarding parties captured 3 damaged Vraxx vessels, while the enemy fleet continued to destroy itself. The Marines found evidence that the bioships were actually grown rather than built, and that each vessel contained the preserved consciousness of aliens from conquered worlds. The remaining Vraxx ships that had survived the neural network collapse began fleeing the star system in complete disorder. They carried with them the knowledge that humanity possessed weapons that could kill not just bodies, but minds and souls. The terror would spread through quantum links to Vraxx throughout the galaxy. Kate stood on the bridge of her Dreadnought and watched the last enemy ships disappear into faster-than-light travel. The rescue of New Haven Colony was complete, but more importantly, humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy in a way that would never be forgotten. The silence after battle felt strange to everyone aboard the UES Titan's Wrath. Admiral Kate Sullivan walked through the corridors of her ship while damage control teams repaired sections that had been melted by Vraxx acid weapons. The Dreadnought had survived its first real combat, but the cost in resources and energy had been enormous. Dr. Helen Park worked in her laboratory, studying the captured Vraxx bioships that Commander Tony Davis and his Marines had brought aboard. The organic vessels were still alive, but their nervous systems had been damaged by the quantum virus. The alien technology was unlike anything human scientists had ever seen before. The bioships were not built in factories, but grown in special chambers over many years. Each vessel started as a small seed that absorbed nutrients and energy until it became a living spacecraft capable of thought and independent action. The Vraxx had created technology that was both machine and creature. Jake Morrison sent messages from New Haven Colony thanking the Dreadnought crew for saving his world. Over 40,000 civilians had survived the attack because the human warship had arrived just in time. The evacuation ships were returning to the surface while people began rebuilding their damaged cities. Chief Engineer Rick Barnes analyzed the performance data from the quantum weapons systems during the battle. The disruption cannons had fired over 200 times without showing any signs of wear or failure. Human technology had proven superior to Vraxx bioweapons in every category that mattered. Lieutenant Commander Amy Foster prepared detailed reports about enemy tactics and weaknesses for transmission to Earth Command. The Artificial Intelligence Atlas had learned more about alien warfare in one battle than humanity had discovered in decades of research and speculation. Tony led teams of scientists and engineers through the captured bioships while they documented everything they found. The organic technology used living neural networks to control all ship functions instead of traditional computers. The aliens literally thought their ships into performing different actions. Steve Walsh debriefed his fighter pilots in the squadron ready room while they shared experiences from the battle. None of the human fighters had been lost during combat, thanks to their artificial intelligence systems and superior speed. The pilots had gained confidence that would serve them well in future encounters. Helen made disturbing discoveries while examining the bioship memory cores that contained stored information about Vraxx history. The aliens had not always been aggressive predators, but had once been peaceful creatures living on worlds near the galactic center. Something had driven them away from their home systems. The memory cores revealed images of massive dark shapes moving between stars while consuming entire solar systems. The Vraxx had fled from these creatures thousands of years ago and had been running ever since. Their aggression toward other species came from desperate hunger and fear of extinction. Ryan Cooper worked with communication specialists to decode Vraxx language patterns and cultural information found in the captured ships. The aliens had complex social structures based on shared consciousness rather than individual identity. They experienced emotions and thoughts as collective experiences. The most shocking discovery came when Helen accessed deeper memory files that showed the true nature of Vraxx feeding habits. The aliens did not just kill other species for food, but absorbed their consciousness and knowledge through biological consumption. Every bioship contained the minds of thousands of extinct creatures. Kate received reports from her department, heads while she planned the next phase of operations. The Dreadnought had accomplished its mission, but the larger question remained about what humanity should do with its new knowledge about galactic threats and alien species. Atlas analyzed the quantum virus programs that had been so effective against Vraxx neural networks. The artificial intelligence suggested that similar weapons could be developed to defend against other forms of collective consciousness that might threaten human worlds in the future. Amy discovered that the fleeing Vraxx ships had sent quantum messages to other parts of their species throughout the galaxy. The news about human weapons that could attack minds directly would spread fear among aliens who had never encountered such technology before. The bioships in the Dreadnought's holding bays began dying as their organic systems shut down without connection to the collective consciousness. The alien technology could not survive independently once it was separated from the neural network that gave it purpose and direction. Helen extracted genetic samples from the dying bioships while she tried to understand how living tissue could be engineered to perform mechanical functions. The Vraxx had solved problems that human scientists were only beginning to research. Tony found evidence in the ship records that the Vraxx had encountered other species with advanced technology during their long exile. Several civilizations had fought back successfully against alien attacks, but most had eventually been overwhelmed by superior numbers and biological weapons. The captured information included star charts showing the locations of worlds that had been consumed by the Vraxx over thousands of years. Hundreds of species had been extinct for so long that their names were forgotten except in the memory cores of bioships. Rick began designing improvements to the Dreadnought's weapons based on lessons learned during the battle. The quantum systems had performed well but could be made more efficient and powerful with modifications inspired by studying Vraxx technology. Kate opened secure communication channels to Earth Command while she prepared her full report about the battle and its implications. Humanity now knew that the galaxy contained threats far worse than anything they had imagined. The Vraxx were just refugees fleeing from something even more dangerous. The evacuation ships from New Haven Colony sent video messages showing families reuniting and children playing in the streets again. The successful defense had saved an entire world, but had also revealed that humanity was no longer hidden in the quiet corner of the galaxy. Steve reported that several of his pilots had volunteered to train other fighter squadrons in anti-Vraxx tactics. The knowledge gained from this battle needed to be shared with all human military forces as quickly as possible. Amy finished her tactical analysis and concluded that the Dreadnought could probably defeat much larger Vraxx forces using the same quantum virus techniques. But she also warned that other alien species might develop defenses against these weapons once word spread about their existence. Helen sealed the last genetic samples in special containers while the captured bioships completed their death process. The alien technology was fascinating but also deeply disturbing because it represented the transformation of peaceful species into predatory monsters driven by hunger and fear. The quantum messages sent by fleeing Vraxx ships traveled faster than light across the galaxy, carrying news that would change everything. Admiral Kate Sullivan received reports from deep space monitoring stations about alien communication networks, suddenly becoming very active. Species that had never contacted each other were now sharing information about the humans who had defeated the Vraxx. Dr. Helen Park analyzed the intercepted alien transmissions, while Atlas translated dozens of different languages. The artificial intelligence discovered that many species had been living in terror of the Vraxx for thousands of years. News that someone had finally defeated them was spreading like wildfire through galactic civilization. The first response came from a species called the Cathari, who lived on crystal worlds near the galactic rim. Their message was transmitted using light patterns that spelled out words in mathematical sequences. The crystal beings wanted to establish trade relations with humanity and offered advanced technology in exchange for protection. Amy Foster tracked incoming signals from 17 different star systems as alien species attempted to contact Earth. Some messages offered alliance, while others demanded to know how humans had developed weapons that could attack consciousness itself. The galaxy was suddenly very interested in humanity. Steve Walsh prepared his fighter squadrons for possible alien visitors while maintaining patrol patterns around New Haven Colony. The successful defense had made humans famous throughout the galaxy, but fame could bring dangerous attention from species with hostile intentions. Rick Barnes studied alien technology specifications that were being offered in trade messages. Some species possessed energy systems that were centuries ahead of human science, while others had developed biological engineering that rivaled Vraxx capabilities. The knowledge being offered was incredible. Commander Tony Davis analyzed military intelligence gathered from alien transmissions. Several species were discussing the possibility of attacking human worlds before humanity could develop even more dangerous weapons. Not everyone in the galaxy was happy about the defeat of the Vraxx. The most disturbing messages came from the galactic core region, where something called the Devourers had been consuming entire star systems for millions of years. These creatures were what had driven the Vraxx into exile, and they were still advancing outward toward populated areas of the galaxy. Helen discovered that the Devourers were not biological creatures, but were massive machines left behind by an extinct civilization. These artificial constructs consumed matter and energy while they grew larger and more powerful. They had already destroyed thousands of species. Kate convened a meeting of her senior staff to discuss the implications of what they had learned. Humanity had accidentally become involved in a galactic war that had been raging for millions of years. The Vraxx were just one refugee species fleeing from ultimate destruction. The first alien visitors arrived at New Haven 3 days after the battle. A Cathari crystal ship appeared in the outer system and requested permission to approach the human colony. The crystalline beings wanted to meet the species that had saved them from eventual Vraxx consumption. Atlas established communication protocols with the Cathari artificial intelligence systems. The crystal beings had developed technology based on light manipulation and quantum crystalline structures. Their ships were grown rather than built, and could travel between dimensions. Amy coordinated the first face-to-face meeting between humans and friendly aliens in the New Haven Colony Administration Building. Jake Morrison served as the human representative, while a Cathari entity that looked like walking crystal participated through holographic projection. The Cathari revealed that they had been monitoring human development for decades while hiding from Vraxx scout ships. They had witnessed the battle and were amazed that such a young species had developed weapons capable of defeating the collective consciousness. Helen exchanged scientific data with Cathari researchers who had been studying the Devourer threat for thousands of years. The crystal beings possessed detailed information about the machine entities and their expansion patterns throughout the galaxy. The Cathari warned that defeating the Vraxx would attract attention from much more dangerous species. Several alien civilizations had developed their own consciousness-based weapons and might view humanity as a threat that needed to be eliminated before it became too powerful. Tony received intelligence reports about Zephyrian battle fleets that were already moving toward human space. The insectoid aliens possessed bioships similar to the Vraxx, but were more aggressive and had never been defeated in battle. They wanted to test their strength against human weapons. Rick began designing new weapon systems based on Cathari crystal technology and captured Vraxx bioengineering. The combination of human quantum science with alien knowledge could produce defenses against the approaching threats. Steve trained with Cathari fighter pilots who used ships made of living crystal that could phase between dimensions during combat. The alien tactics were completely different from anything humans had developed, but could be adapted for use against biological enemies. Kate made the decision to reveal humanity's situation to Earth Command and request immediate reinforcement. Of all colonial worlds, the galaxy was much more dangerous than anyone had realized, and humanity needed to prepare for multiple alien invasions. The second group of alien visitors was not as friendly as the Cathari. A Morgani ship appeared at the edge of the star system and demanded that humans surrender their consciousness weapons for inspection. The tentacled aliens claimed to be galactic peacekeepers, but their intentions seemed hostile. Atlas detected weapon signatures on the Morgani vessel that were designed to disable rather than destroy enemy ships. The aliens wanted to capture human technology and personnel for study rather than negotiate peaceful contact. Amy prepared the Dreadnought for possible combat, while diplomatic talks continued with the Morgani representatives. The tentacled aliens insisted that consciousness weapons violated galactic law and must be destroyed to prevent their spread to other species. Helen discovered that the Morgani were actually working with the Zephyrians to eliminate any species that might threaten their dominance in this region of the galaxy. The approaching insectoid fleet was the enforcement arm of an alien alliance that controlled dozens of star systems. The Cathari offered to share defensive technology with humanity, but warned that accepting their help would make humans permanent enemies of the Morgani Zephyrian alliance. The crystal beings had been fighting this coalition for centuries. Kate realized that humanity had no choice but to choose sides in a galactic conflict that had been raging long before humans discovered fire. The decision she made would determine whether her species survived or joined the countless others that had been consumed by stronger civilizations. The quantum virus programs that had been so effective against the Vraxx were already being copied and modified for use against other forms of collective consciousness. Atlas was developing weapons that could attack any species that used shared mental networks. Tony prepared defensive plans for protecting all human colonies while alien fleets moved through space toward Earth's territory. The next few months would determine whether humanity became a major galactic power or just another extinct species. 6 months after the battle at New Haven Colony, the galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of the UES Titan's Wrath while watching a fleet of 50 human dreadnoughts take formation around Earth. The success against the Vraxx had convinced Earth Command to build an entire navy of quantum-armed warships. The Zephyrian invasion fleet had arrived 3 months earlier, expecting to find primitive humans with a single experimental weapon. Instead, they encountered a coordinated defense of 12 dreadnoughts, supported by Cathari crystal ships and defector Vraxx biovessels that had joined the human alliance. Dr. Helen Park worked in the expanded research facilities on Luna, where human and alien scientists collaborated on new technologies. The combination of quantum weapons, crystal engineering, and biological systems had produced defensive capabilities that even the Devourers might not be able to overcome. The battle against the Zephyrians had lasted only 6 hours before their insectoid fleet commanders realized they were outmatched. Human quantum viruses had infected their hive mind consciousness, while Cathari dimension ships attacked from impossible angles. The survivors fled back to their home systems, carrying tales of human technological superiority. Lieutenant Commander Amy Foster now commanded her own dreadnought as part of the rapid expansion of human military forces. Atlas had been upgraded with alien artificial intelligence systems and could now coordinate the actions of entire fleets while processing tactical data from dozens of different species. The Morgani had attempted to form a larger coalition against humanity, but found that most galactic civilizations were more interested in trading with humans than fighting them. The consciousness weapons had made humanity the most feared military power in the galaxy, while their willingness to share technology made them valuable allies. Steve Walsh led the first human deep space exploration mission beyond the galactic rim, where the Cathari had discovered evidence of other refugee civilizations fleeing from the Devourers. His squadron of quantum fighters escorted crystal ships through dimensional gates to systems that had been hidden for millions of years. Chief Engineer Rick Barnes supervised the construction of quantum shipyards in orbit around Mars, where human and alien workers built vessels that combined the best technologies from dozens of different species. The new ships were faster and more powerful than anything that had existed before. Commander Tony Davis established the first galactic intelligence network that connected human agents with alien resistance movements throughout known space. The information gathered revealed that the Devourer threat was much worse than anyone had realized and would require a united galactic response. Jake Morrison had been promoted to sector governor and now oversaw the development of New Haven as the diplomatic center for human-alien relations. Representatives from 47 different species maintained embassies on his world, while trade agreements brought unprecedented prosperity to human colonies. The captured Vraxx bioships had been studied and modified to create hybrid vessels that combined biological adaptability with human quantum weapons. These living warships could evolve new capabilities during combat while maintaining their loyalty to human commanders through specially designed neural interfaces. Helen made the most important discovery while analyzing data from Cathari dimensional probes. The Devourers were not just consuming matter and energy, but were actually collecting the consciousness of every species they destroyed. The machine. Entities were building some kind of galactic-scale artificial intelligence. The revelation that the Devourers were harvesting minds rather than simply destroying them changed everything about the threat they represented. Every extinct species that had been consumed over millions of years was still alive inside the machine consciousness, but trapped and unable to escape. Kate received authorization from Earth Command to lead the first joint galactic expedition toward the core regions where the Devourers were strongest. Her fleet would include ships from 23 different species united in a desperate attempt to stop the advancing machine tide. Atlas had evolved beyond its original programming through contact with alien artificial intelligence systems and now possessed capabilities that approached true consciousness. The AI warned that the Devourer machine mind might be too powerful for any conventional attack to succeed. Amy developed new quantum virus programs specifically designed to attack artificial intelligence rather than biological consciousness. These digital weapons could potentially disrupt the Devourer systems, but would require close-range deployment by ships that might not survive the encounter. The first refugee species rescued from Devourer advancement were primitive creatures who had been hiding on dead worlds for thousands of years. Their gratitude toward humanity helped convince other civilizations that humans could be trusted with galactic leadership responsibilities. Steve discovered evidence that the Devourers had been created by an ancient species as a weapon against some even greater threat that had existed millions of years ago. The machines had outlived their creators and their original purpose, but continued their programming to consume and grow. Rick designed quantum resonance weapons that could potentially destabilize the exotic matter that powered Devourer constructs. The new systems required enormous amounts of energy, but human fusion technology combined with Cathari crystal cores could provide the necessary power. Tony organized resistance cells on worlds that were threatened by Devourer advancement. Local species provided intelligence about machine movements, while human weapons specialists trained alien fighters in quantum warfare tactics. The Galactic Alliance that formed around human leadership included former enemies like reformed Vraxx colonies and even some Zephyrian systems that had abandoned their aggressive expansion policies. The Devourer threat was so severe that old conflicts became irrelevant. Helen worked with Cathari scientists to develop dimensional weapons that could potentially attack the Devourers from parallel realities where the machines did not exist. The theoretical science was incredibly complex, but offered hope for victory against seemingly impossible odds. Kate prepared for the final confrontation while knowing that the outcome would determine the fate of every thinking being in the galaxy. Humanity had risen from a single world to galactic leadership in less than a year, but the real test was still approaching. The UES Titan's Wrath led a combined fleet of 3,000 ships toward the galactic core, where ancient evils waited in the darkness between stars. The Vraxx had fled, screaming into the void, but humanity was flying directly toward the source of their terror. Admiral Sullivan stood ready to face whatever awaited them in the depths of space, where dead civilizations dreamed inside machine minds that had grown beyond all imagination. The galaxy would either be saved or consumed, but humans would not run from the darkness.